The massive alien warship Divine Retribution hung in the void like a silver blade against the stars. Its hull gleamed with polished metal that had never seen real combat. Inside the ship's war room, Admiral Kethavar studied the holographic display with cold satisfaction. "Show me the human territories again," he commanded, his forearms crossed behind his back. The Zeltharian Admiral's scales shimmered purple in the dim light as data streams flowed across the projection. Commander Zixtal stepped forward, his smaller frame dwarfed by the Admiral's presence. "Sir, our scouts have mapped their entire outer rim. 27 colonies, mostly mining operations and agricultural worlds. Their defenses are laughably primitive." Kethavar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Primitive indeed. Kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. Do they still use metal slugs fired from tubes? "Yes, sir. Our intelligence suggests they call them railguns and seem quite proud of the technology. They also rely heavily on nuclear warheads, though their delivery systems are slow and easily tracked." The Admiral moved closer to the display, watching red dots mark human settlements across a dozen star systems. Each dot represented millions of lives that would soon learn the price of existing in Zeltharian space. The hegemony had expanded across the galaxy for 3 centuries, bringing order to chaos and civilization to barbarism. These humans would be no different. "What of their fleet strength?" Kethavar asked, though he already knew the answer would be disappointing. "Minimal, sir. Perhaps 50 vessels of varying classes, most stationed around their core worlds. The outer colonies have only patrol boats and cargo haulers. Our sources indicate they've been at peace for over 40 years and have grown soft." Kethavar's inner eyelids closed slowly, a sign of deep satisfaction among his people. 40 years of peace. No wonder they've forgotten how to fight. What do we know of their military doctrine? Zixtal pulled up another display showing grainy images of human warships. They looked crude and angular, nothing like the flowing curves of Zeltharian design. "Their vessels appear to be built for durability rather than elegance, sir. Thick armor plating, redundant systems, multiple weapon mounts. Quite wasteful, really." "Wasteful and desperate," the Admiral agreed. "Only a species that expects to lose would build such ugly, over-armored ships. Still, I want our forces prepared. 300 vessels should be more than adequate to subdue their entire outer rim." The war room's doors hissed open as Fleet Commander Vorthak entered. The older Zeltharian scales had faded to a dull gray, marking him as a veteran of many campaigns. He saluted crisply before approaching the hologram. "Admiral, the fleet reports ready for the final assault. All ships have achieved optimal positioning along the human border. Plasma cannons are charged, quantum shields are at full power." Kethavar nodded approvingly. The Zeltharian war machine was a thing of beauty, precise, overwhelming, unstoppable. Each ship in his fleet could probably handle a dozen human vessels single-handedly. The humans would surrender after the first demonstration of superior firepower, just like all the others. Meanwhile, light years away on the mining station Kepler 442b, Sarah Chen wiped down another glass and tried not to think about the past. The small bar she ran catered to miners and cargo haulers passing through the system. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and nobody asked questions about her previous life. The station was typical of human frontier construction, functional rather than beautiful. Corridors lined with exposed pipes and cable conduits, walls made from recycled hull plating, and the constant hum of life support systems working at maximum capacity. It wasn't much, but 20,000 people called it home. Chen looked up as the evening news flickered on the bar's screen. The anchor's voice carried the usual mix of boredom and manufactured excitement that marked civilian media. Tensions continue to rise. Along the outer rim as unknown vessels have been detected in several uninhabited systems. Colonial Defense Command urges calm while they investigate these reports. Several patrons glanced at the screen, but most continued their conversations. Chen had heard similar reports for weeks, probably just pirates or smugglers testing new routes. The frontier had always been dangerous. Her attention drifted to the window that looked out over the station's industrial section. In the distance, she could see the massive bulk of the Indomitable sitting in the scrapyard like a beached whale. The ancient Dreadnought had been her command once, back when she was Captain Chen instead of just Sarah the bartender. The ship looked pathetic now. Sections of hull plating had been removed, exposing the internal framework beneath. Weapon turrets sat empty, their barrels sold for scrap years ago. The once proud vessel that had served humanity for over 2 centuries was being slowly cannibalized to keep other ships running. Chen turned away from the window. The past was the past, and she had work to do. 3 hours later, everything changed. The first sign of trouble was the communications blackout. One by one, the outer monitoring stations went silent. Then came the refugees, cargo ships and passenger liners packed beyond capacity, their crews reporting the complete destruction of New Brisbane colony. Station Commander Torres called an emergency meeting in the command center. Chen found herself there not as a bartender, but as one of the few people on the station with real military experience. The room buzzed with nervous energy as reports poured in from across the rim. "Parnell Station is gone," Torres announced, his face pale. 20,000 people just gone. The attacking ships didn't even try to communicate. They just opened fire and kept shooting until nothing was left. A mining foreman named Rodriguez spoke up. "What kind of ships are we dealing with? Pirates don't have that kind of firepower." "Not pirates," Torres replied grimly. "Something else. Something with technology we've never seen before. Energy weapons that cut through our best shields like paper. Ships that can accelerate at impossible rates." Chen felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. She'd seen combat before, fought pirates and separatists during the Outer Rim conflicts. But this sounded different. This sounded like war. "What about the fleet?" someone asked. "Where's colonial defense?" Torres shook his head. "The nearest battle group is 3 weeks away minimum. By the time they get here, these aliens, whoever they are, will have swept through every colony in the sector." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were alone, facing an enemy with superior technology and unknown intentions. Outside the command center's windows, Chen could see people going about their normal routines, unaware that their world was about to change forever. Then the communication came through on all frequencies, a message that would be remembered throughout human space for generations to come. The alien voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computers into flat, emotionless English. "Primitive humans of the outer territories. You have 72 hours to surrender your colonies and submit to Zeltharian authority. Resistance is futile. Compliance will be rewarded with continued existence. Defiance will result in complete extinction. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Finally, someone laughed, a bitter, desperate sound that held no humor. 72 hours, Torres said quietly. 72 hours to save 20,000 lives, and we don't even have a single warship. Chen looked out the window again at the Indomitable, sitting forgotten in the scrapyard. An impossible idea began to form in her mind. Crazy, desperate, and probably suicidal. But sometimes crazy was all you had. The command center had been buzzing with activity for 18 hours straight. Coffee cups and food containers littered every surface as the station's leadership tried to find solutions that didn't exist. Commander Torres looked like he had aged 10 years since the alien ultimatum arrived. Sarah Chen sat in the corner, nursing her third cup of coffee and watching the chaos unfold. Engineers proposed hiding the station behind the local gas giant. Miners suggested evacuating everyone to the outer asteroid belt. The station's small security force talked about mounting a desperate last stand with mining equipment. All stupid ideas, Chen knew. But she couldn't blame them for trying. "We could rig the fusion reactors to overload," suggested Chief Engineer Patel. "Take some of the alien ships with us when they arrive, and kill every person on this station in the process." Torres replied tiredly. "We're not giving up yet." Chen finally spoke up. "What about the Indomitable?" The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the old Dreadnought sitting in the scrapyard, but most people saw it as a relic from humanity's more aggressive past. Torres shook his head. "Sarah, that ship hasn't been operational in 15 years. Half the systems have been stripped for parts." "The hull is still intact," Chen said, standing up slowly. "The main reactor was sealed, not removed. The basic framework is solid." "It's a museum piece," protested Rodriguez. "Even if we could get it running, what good would one ship do against an entire alien fleet?" Chen walked to the window and looked out at the Indomitable. 200 meters of armored hull, built when humanity still remembered how to fight. The ship had served in 3 different conflicts over its long career, always coming home battered but unbroken. "Tell me about these aliens," she said without turning around. "What do we know about their tactics?" Torres pulled up the limited intelligence they had gathered from refugee reports. They seem to prefer long-range engagement. Energy weapons with incredible accuracy. Their ships are fast and maneuverable, but they don't seem interested in close combat. Typical for an advanced species, Chen mused. Clean, efficient warfare. Minimal risk to their own forces. She turned back to face the room. The Indomitable was built for a different kind of war. Close-range brawling where armor and firepower matter more than fancy technology. But it's been gutted, Patel insisted. The weapon systems are gone. Half the armor plating has been sold. The navigation computers are decades out of date. Chen smiled grimly. Then we'll have to improvise. For the next 6 hours, Chen walked through every section of the old Dreadnought with Patel and his engineering team. The ship was in worse condition than she had hoped, but not as bad as she had feared. The main hull was intact. The primary reactor could still generate power, and the basic life support systems were functional. The weapon systems were a bigger problem. The original railgun turrets had been removed years ago, sold to other ships or melted down for scrap. The missile tubes were empty, their targeting computers stripped away. Even the point defense lasers were gone. We'll need to get creative, Chen told Patel as they stood in the gutted weapons bay. What kind of industrial equipment does the station have? Mining lasers, cargo manipulators, fusion welders, Patel replied. Nothing designed for combat. Everything's designed for combat if you're desperate enough, Chen said. What about the mining charges? Patel's eyes lit up with understanding. Shaped explosive charges for asteroid mining. We've got maybe 200 in storage. That's our missile system. What else? They spent the rest of the day cataloging everything that could be weaponized. Mining lasers could be jury-rigged into crude beam weapons. Cargo manipulators could launch improvised projectiles. The station's small fleet of work pods could serve as fighter craft. Word of the plan spread quickly through the station. At first, people thought Chen had lost her mind. But as the hours ticked by and no other options emerged, volunteers began showing up at the docking bay where the Indomitable waited. Marcus Rivera was the first. The former Navy engineer had been working cargo haulers for 20 years, but he still remembered how military systems worked. He took one look at the Dreadnought's power core and rolled up his sleeves. This old girl's got good bones, he told Chen. Give me 48 hours and I'll have her purring like a kitten. Dr. Emily Watson arrived next, dragging her medical kit behind her. The station's chief physician had no military experience, but she understood that people would get hurt. Someone's going to need to patch up the crew when this goes sideways, she said simply. The trickle of volunteers became a flood. Miners who knew explosives, engineers who understood complex systems, cargo handlers who could move equipment quickly. Even some of the younger station residents showed up, eager to help defend their home. Chen found herself in the strange position of being a captain again. She hadn't wanted the responsibility, hadn't asked for it, but here it was anyway. The crew looked to her for leadership and she couldn't let them down. The work was backbreaking. Teams worked around the clock to restore basic systems, install improvised weapons, and prepare the ship for what might be its final voyage. The mining lasers were mounted in jury-rigged turrets. Cargo bays were converted into missile tubes. Every section of the ship buzzed with activity. On the second day, something unexpected happened. The ship's original AI system came online. "Good morning, Captain Chen," said a familiar voice over the intercom. "I trust you're well." Chen nearly dropped the wrench she was holding. "Marcus? I thought you were deactivated." "Dormant, not deactivated," the AI replied with what sounded like amusement. "I've been sleeping, dreaming perhaps. It's good to be needed again." Marcus, military automated response and combat understanding system, had been the Indomitable's brain for over 50 years. His personality matrix had evolved during decades of service, becoming more human-like over time. When the ship was decommissioned, his systems had been put into hibernation, rather than being wiped clean. "What's our status, Marcus?" Chen asked. "Dire, but not hopeless," the AI responded after a moment. "I've been monitoring the repair work. Creative solutions, though somewhat inelegant. I approve of the mining charge modifications. Crude, but effective. Can you help coordinate the repairs?" "Already doing so, Captain. I've taken the liberty of optimizing work schedules and resource allocation. We should have basic systems operational within 36 hours. That evening, Chen stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the work crews swarming over her ship. The bridge itself was a mess. Jury-rigged control panels replacing the original systems. cables running everywhere and the smell of welding torches in the air. "You know this is suicide," Torres said, joining her at the observation window. "Probably," Chen agreed. "But what's the alternative? Let these aliens waltz in and take over without a fight? You could surrender. Maybe they'll be reasonable." Chen thought about the cold voice in the alien transmission. "Reasonable people don't announce their intention to commit genocide if you don't surrender. These aren't reasonable people." Torres was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you doing this, Sarah? You could take a shuttle and run. Nobody would blame you." Chen looked down at the deck plating beneath her feet. The Indomitable had been her first real command, the ship where she had learned what it meant to be a captain. She had made mistakes here, decisions that haunted her, but she had also saved lives, protected the innocent, stood between civilization and chaos. "Because someone has to," she said finally. "Because if we don't fight, who will?" Outside the ship, the work continued. Time was running out and everyone knew it. In less than 24 hours, the alien fleet would arrive expecting an easy victory. They were going to be very disappointed. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Divine Retribution, watching the human star system grow larger on the main display. His fleet had arrived precisely on schedule. 300 of the hegemony's finest warships, their hulls gleaming with deadly beauty. "Initial scans complete, Admiral," reported Commander Zixtal. "The system appears largely abandoned. Most civilian traffic has fled to the inner worlds, cowards," Kethvar said with satisfaction. "At least they understand their situation." "What about defensive installations?" "Minimal, sir. A few automated defense platforms around the main asteroid mining operation, but nothing that poses a threat to our forces. Our advanced scouts report that the primary settlement appears to be a space station built around a large asteroid." The Admiral nodded approvingly. The humans were behaving exactly as predicted, running in terror at the first sign of superior force. It would make the conquest much simpler. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting something unusual. There appears to be a single vessel moving to intercept our formation." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "A single ship? Some brave fool looking to die gloriously, I suppose. Display it." The main screen shifted to show a distant speck of metal drifting among the asteroids. Even at this range, it was obviously human in origin. Angular, crude, and ugly. Scorch marks covered its hull and sections of armor plating were clearly mismatched patches. "Magnify," the Admiral ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing more details. The ship was old, ancient by human standards. Its design looked like something from their early spacefaring period, all sharp edges and exposed weapon mounts. Several turrets had been obviously jury-rigged from industrial equipment. "Analysis?" Kethvar demanded. Zixtal consulted his instruments. "The vessel appears to be a human dreadnought, possibly 2 centuries old. Mass readings are unusual, sir, much higher than expected for a ship of that class." "Explain." "Unknown, sir. Either their sensors are malfunctioning, or that ship is carrying an enormous amount of mass in its cargo holds." Kethvar studied the image with growing amusement. "A museum piece crewed by desperate fools. How pathetic. Signal the human vessel. Give them one chance to surrender before we demonstrate the folly of resistance." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet approach through the main viewer. Even at this distance, their ships were beautiful. Sleek curves that spoke of advanced technology and overwhelming firepower. Her own vessel felt primitive by comparison, held together with determination and spare parts. "Incoming transmission," reported Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. The young woman had volunteered from the station's traffic control department, learning military protocols as they went. "Put it through," Chen ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was the same cold, mechanical tone from the original ultimatum. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately and your crew will be granted swift execution instead of prolonged suffering." Chen looked around the bridge at her makeshift crew. Rivera was hunched over the engineering controls, trying to coax more power from the ancient reactor. Dr. Watson monitored life support systems she had learned to operate 3 days ago. Former miners and cargo handlers sat at weapon stations they barely understood. They were all going to die. Chen knew it and they knew it too, but nobody moved from their post. "Marcus," she said quietly, "open a channel." "Channel open, Captain." Chen stood up slowly, smoothing down her civilian clothes. She had refused to wear a uniform. Those days were behind her. But her voice carried all the authority of her former rank when she spoke. "Alien vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human starship Indomitable. You have entered human space without permission and threatened innocent civilians. I'm here to escort you back where you came from." The silence that followed was broken by what sounded like alien laughter. "Human, you face the combined might of the Zeltharian hegemony. Your single vessel cannot stand against 300 of our warships. Surrender now or be destroyed." Chen smiled grimly. "I've heard that before. Marcus, all hands to battle stations." Warning klaxons echoed through the ship as the crew prepared for combat. In the cargo bays, mining charges were loaded into improvised missile tubes. Jury-rigged laser turrets swiveled toward the approaching enemy fleet. The ship's reactor output climbed toward dangerous levels. "Ma'am?" Rivera called from engineering. "We're as ready as we'll ever be. The mining charges are armed, the lasers are charged, and I've got the reactor running at 110%. "What about our special cargo?" Chen asked. Rivera grinned. "Locked and loaded, Captain. Though I still think you're completely insane." Chen had spent the last 2 days implementing a desperate plan. The Indomitable's cargo bays had been filled with asteroids. Millions of tons of rock and metal that turned the ancient Dreadnought into a massive kinetic weapon. Combined with the ship's reinforced hull and powerful engines, they had created something the aliens wouldn't expect. "Enemy fleet is spreading into attack formation," reported Kim. "They're maintaining long-range distance, probably planning to engage with energy weapons." "Typical," Chen muttered. "They want a clean, safe battle. Marcus, take us in fast and hard. Full power to engines and forward shields." "Understood, Captain. Beginning attack run now." The Indomitable began to accelerate, its ancient engines pushing the massive vessel faster than it had moved in decades. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar watched with growing confusion. "They're charging our formation," Zixtal reported incredulously. "Single ship, moving at maximum velocity directly toward our battle line." "Impossible," the Admiral replied. "Even humans aren't that stupid. It must be some kind of trick." "Sir, mass readings from the human vessel continue to climb. I think they've loaded their cargo holds with asteroids." Kethavar's scales darkened with sudden understanding. "A ramming attack. How wonderfully primitive. All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel before it reaches our formation." 300 Zeltharian warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams and particle cannons lit up space, converging on the single human vessel charging toward them. The Indomitable disappeared behind a wall of energy weapons fire. When the light faded, it was still coming. "Impossible," Kethavar snarled. "Nothing could survive that barrage." On the Indomitable's bridge, emergency lights cast eerie shadows as damage reports poured in. The forward shields were down, hull breaches were reported on 6 decks, and half the weapon systems were offline. But the ship was still intact, still moving, still fighting. "Hull integrity at 60%, Rivera reported. "We've lost sections 7 through 12, but the main structure is holding." "Return fire," Chen ordered. "All weapons, target the closest enemy vessels." The Dreadnought's makeshift weapons opened up as it plowed into the alien formation. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroid rock sliced into alien hulls never meant to withstand such crude but effective firepower. Improvised missile tubes launched mining charges that exploded against enemy shields with devastating effect. But the real weapon was the ship itself. At full acceleration, loaded with millions of tons of asteroid mass, the Indomitable was unstoppable. The first Zeltharian vessel to attempt an intercept simply vanished in a cloud of debris as the human Dreadnought smashed through it without slowing down. "They're scattering," Kim reported with amazement. "The enemy formation is breaking up." Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his perfect battle line dissolved into chaos. The human ship was like a meteor plowing through his fleet, destroying everything in its path. His elegant warships, designed for clean long-range combat, were helpless against such primitive brutality. "All ships concentrate fire on that vessel," he ordered desperately. "Bring it down!" But the Indomitable was already past his front line, turning with impossible agility for such a massive ship. Chen had spent 40 years learning to fight, and she knew how to use every advantage her vessel possessed. "Marcus, new target," she called out. "That big ship in the center of their formation. I want to introduce them to human hospitality." "Target acquired, Captain. I should mention that ramming a flagship is considered extremely impolite by most species. Good thing I was never trained in diplomacy. Take us in. The ancient Dreadnought, scarred and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, turned toward the divine retribution. Behind it, the wreckage of 20 Zeltharian warships tumbled through space. The aliens had expected an effortless triumph. Instead, they had found something they had never encountered before. A species crazy enough to turn a museum piece into an instrument of war, and stubborn enough to keep fighting when any reasonable people would have surrendered. The battle was just beginning. The divine retribution shuddered under the impact of human weapons fire. Admiral Kethavar gripped his command chair as the bridge lights flickered, his perfect formation scattered across the asteroid field like leaves in a storm. "Damage report," he barked. "Forward shields down to 40%, Commander Zixtal replied, his voice tight with strain. "That human ship is using some kind of industrial cutting beam. It's crude but effective against our hull plating." Kethavar's mandibles clicked in frustration. This wasn't how warfare was supposed to work. Battles should be clean, precise affairs decided by superior technology and tactical brilliance. Instead, he found himself facing an enemy that seemed to view everything as a potential weapon. "Sir, the human vessel is changing course again," the sensor officer reported. "It's heading for the asteroid field. Follow them," Kethavar ordered. "We'll corner them among the rocks and finish this." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet pursue her into the maze of floating stone and metal that surrounded the mining station. Perfect. The aliens might have superior technology, but this was her territory now. "Marcus, what's our status?" she asked. "Hull integrity down to 42%, the AI reported. We've lost main power to decks 15 through 20. Life support is holding, but barely. The good news is that our improvised weapons are performing better than expected. And the bad news? We're outnumbered nearly 300 to 1, running on fumes and held together by spite and determination." Chen smiled grimly. "So, a typical Tuesday for this old ship." Lieutenant Kim looked up from her sensor station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the alien fleet. They're trying to get target locks on us through the asteroid field." "Let them try," Chen replied. "Marcus, remember the Titan Belt incident?" "Ah yes, your unorthodox use of mining charges to create an artificial meteor shower. Still considered a war crime by several species, I believe. Only because it worked. Do we still have charges left?" 67 mining charges remaining, plus whatever we can improvise from ship stores." Chen turned to Rivera at the engineering station. "Chief, I need you to rig some of those charges for remote detonation." "Can you do that?" Rivera's eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to turn the asteroids into weapons?" "Ma'am, that's absolutely crazy. I'll take that as a yes." "Kim, start mapping the largest asteroids in our immediate vicinity. I want to know which ones would cause the most damage if they suddenly started moving in the wrong direction." The next hour turned into a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids. The Indomitable used its knowledge of the mining field to stay one step ahead of the alien hunters, while Chen implemented a strategy that would have horrified any civilized military commander. Mining charges, designed to break apart asteroids for easier processing, were instead used to turn those same asteroids into massive projectiles. The human ship would approach an asteroid, plant charges, then retreat as tons of rock accelerated toward the alien formation. "This is madness," Admiral Kethavar snarled as another improvised meteor smashed into one of his cruisers. "They're using the entire asteroid field as a weapon." "Sir, we could withdraw and bombard the area from long range," suggested Commander Zixtal. "Absolutely not. I will not be defeated by a single obsolete human vessel. All ships converge on their last known position. We'll overwhelm them with concentrated firepower." But Chen had anticipated that response. As the Zeltharian fleet closed in, they found not the Indomitable, but the mining station itself, 20,000 civilians who had refused to evacuate. "They're using the station as a shield," Zixtal reported with disgust. Kethavar's scales flushed with anger. Using civilian populations as cover was another violation of civilized warfare. These humans fought like barbarians without honor or proper military protocol. "Sir, the human vessel is emerging from behind the station," the sensor officer called out. They're coming straight at us again." Once again, the battered Dreadnought accelerated toward the alien fleet. But this time something was different. The ship's profile had changed, sections of hull plating missing and strange protrusions extending from the main hull. "What are those structures?" Kethavar demanded. His answer came in the form of a massive cargo container launched from the human ship's improvised catapult system. The container, filled with mining equipment and spare parts, smashed into a Zeltharian destroyer with devastating effect. "They've turned their cargo handling system into a mass driver," Zixtal said with something approaching admiration. "Completely insane but effective." The battle became a nightmare of improvised weapons and desperate tactics. The humans used everything: cargo containers as projectiles, industrial welders as close-range weapons, even sections of their own hull as improvised missiles. When conventional ammunition ran low, they switched to firing chunks of processed asteroid ore through their jury-rigged railgun system. Dr. Watson worked frantically in the medical bay, treating injuries from systems that were never meant to be used in combat. Burns from overloaded mining lasers, decompression injuries from hull breaches, and blunt trauma from equipment that had torn loose during violent maneuvers. "Captain," she called over the intercom, "I've got 17 injured down here." The mining laser in Turret 3 exploded when they tried to overcharge it. "Understood, Doc. Just keep them alive," Chen replied, then switched to the engineering channel. "Rivera, how are we doing on power?" "We're running the reactor at 120% of rated capacity. I keep telling it that's impossible, but it doesn't seem to be listening. We've also got coolant leaks on 3 decks, and the artificial gravity is flickering in sections 7 through 9. Chen looked at the tactical display, watching red dots representing alien ships slowly decrease in number. They had destroyed or disabled nearly 50 enemy vessels, but the cost was mounting. The Indomitable was literally falling apart around them. "Marcus, talk to me. What's our situation?" "Honestly, Captain, we should have been destroyed 20 minutes ago. The only reason we're still fighting is that the aliens keep expecting us to behave rationally." "Meaning?" "They expect us to retreat when damaged, surrender when outnumbered, and follow some kind of logical tactical doctrine. Instead, we keep doing things that make no sense from their perspective." As if to prove the AI's point, Chen ordered another impossible maneuver. Using the station's industrial tractor beams as anchors, the Indomitable swung around the massive asteroid like a ball on a chain, building up momentum before releasing toward the alien fleet at incredible velocity. The sight of a 200-meter warship using gravitational physics like a slingshot was apparently too much for several alien captains. 3 ships simply broke formation and fled rather than face whatever insane tactic the humans would think of next. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet slowly dissolve around him. His beautiful, precise warships were being systematically destroyed by what amounted to an armed cargo hauler, held together with determination and scrap metal. "Sir," Commander Zixtal said quietly, "perhaps we should consider tactical withdrawal. We can call for reinforcements and—" "No." Kethvar slammed his fist on the command console. "I will not be remembered as the admiral who fled from a single human ship. All remaining vessels prepare for close assault. We'll board that vessel and end this personally." But as the Zeltharian fleet closed for what should have been the final engagement, they discovered that the humans had one more surprise waiting. The mining station, which had appeared to be simply providing cover, suddenly blazed with activity. Dozens of work pods and cargo haulers, hastily armed with whatever weapons could be found, swarmed out to join the battle. They were piloted by miners and engineers who had never seen military service, but they knew how to handle industrial equipment in dangerous conditions. The small craft couldn't match alien warships in direct combat, but they didn't need to. Like angry hornets, they swarmed around the larger vessels, targeting sensor arrays and weapon systems with precise industrial tools. "This is impossible," Kethvar whispered, watching his technological superiority being systematically negated by human ingenuity and sheer bloody-minded determination. On the Indomitable, Chen felt a familiar sensation. The moment in a battle when momentum shifts, when the impossible starts to look merely improbable. The alien fleet was wavering, their perfect formations broken by tactics they couldn't understand or counter. "All ships," she broadcasted on an open channel. "This is Captain Chen. These aliens came here expecting an easy victory. Let's show them what happens when you threaten human civilians." The response was immediate. Every human vessel in the system, from armed work pods to converted cargo haulers, converged on the alien fleet. They came not as trained military units, but as an angry mob of miners, engineers, and dock workers who had decided they'd had enough of being pushed around. Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror, that he wasn't fighting a military engagement anymore. He was fighting a war, and wars were something humans apparently understood very well indeed. The darkness of space held no sound as the massive warship emerged from the void. The UES Retribution cut through the black like a steel blade, its hull stretching nearly 2 kilometers from nose to tail. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the stars shift on the main screen. "Distance to target system?" she asked without turning around. 47 million kilometers and closing, Commander," replied Lieutenant Foster from his navigation station. "We should reach the outer planets in 6 hours." Vasquez nodded slowly. The Kepler 442 system lay ahead, home to the Zephyrian colony world that had made a terrible mistake. They had taken humans prisoner. They had experimented on them. They had tortured Earth's children for their twisted science. Now humanity would answer. The bridge hummed quietly around her. 200 crew members worked throughout the ship, each one knowing what they carried in the belly of their vessel. The quantum dissolution array sat in the lower decks like a sleeping monster, waiting to wake up and devour worlds. "Commander?" came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Chief Engineer Martinez approaching. His face looked tired, as if he had not slept in days. "The weapon is ready for testing. All systems show green." "How long to full charge when we give the order?" Vasquez asked. 30 minutes from cold start. 15 if we keep it on standby." Vasquez felt a weight in her chest. 30 minutes to erase a planet from existence. 15 if they were ready to kill quickly. She had read the reports from the science teams. The weapon did not just destroy, it made things stop existing entirely. No debris, no radiation, just empty space where matter used to be. "Keep it cold for now," she said. "We follow protocol." Martinez nodded and walked away. Vasquez knew he understood. They all did. This was not a normal military mission. This was something new and terrible that humanity had never done before. The ship's computer, which everyone called Cerberus, spoke in its calm, electronic voice. "Commander Vasquez, encrypted message from Earth Command arriving now." "Put it through to my quarters," she replied. "I'll take it privately." Vasquez left the bridge and walked down the metal corridors to her room. The ship felt different now that they were so close to their target. The crew moved with purpose, but also with fear. Everyone knew what the Retribution could do. Everyone knew they might have to use it. In her quarters, Vasquez activated the secure communication system. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression grave and serious. "Elena," the Admiral said, "I know this is hard, but you have your orders. The Zephyrians took our people. They hurt them. They killed them for science. We cannot let this stand." "I understand, Admiral," Vasquez replied. "But a whole planet has 12 billion enemy aliens who support what their government did to us," Chen interrupted. "They cheered when the news reports showed human prisoners being dissected alive. They are not innocent." Vasquez felt sick to her stomach. She had seen those reports too. Videos of human soldiers being cut open while still conscious, their organs studied while they screamed. The Zephyrians had broadcast it as educational material for their schools. "The weapon will work as designed?" Vasquez asked. Dr. Kim confirms it. "The quantum dissolution array will unravel the atomic bonds holding matter together. The planet will simply cease to exist. No black hole, no debris field, just empty space. And if they surrender? Then we take them prisoner and put them on trial for war crimes," Admiral Chen said. "But Elena, they won't surrender. The Zephyrians think they are superior to us. They think one human ship cannot threaten their homeworld." The transmission ended, leaving Vasquez alone with her thoughts. She looked out the small window in her quarters at the stars sliding past. Somewhere ahead lay a world full of beings who had committed horrible crimes against her species. In a few hours she might have to decide whether they lived or died. A soft knock came at her door. "Enter," she called. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park stepped inside. Park served as the ship's weapons officer, the person who would actually fire the dissolution array if the order came. "Ma'am, the crew is asking questions," Park said. "They want to know if we're really going to do it." "What do you tell them?" "That we follow orders and protect humanity," Park replied. "But some of them are scared. They joined the Navy to fight other ships, not to destroy planets." Vasquez understood. She felt the same fear. Human military doctrine had always focused on defeating enemy forces, not wiping out entire civilizations. The dissolution array changed everything. It made humans capable of genocide on a scale never seen before. Have you run diagnostics on the targeting system? Vasquez asked. 3 times, ma'am. Everything works perfectly. We can target anything from a single building to an entire moon. The beam will dissolve whatever we aim at completely. And the safety protocols? All in place. The weapon cannot fire without authorization codes from both you and me. Even then, Cerberus will require a final confirmation before activation. Vasquez felt a small relief. At least they had safeguards. The decision to use the weapon would not be made by accident or in anger. There's something else, Commander, Park said quietly. Long-range sensors picked up Zephyrian communications. They know we're coming. Are they mobilizing their defenses? Yes, ma'am. 300 ships and planetary shields. They seem confident they can stop us. Vasquez almost smiled. The Zephyrians had no idea what they faced. Their shields and ships were designed to stop conventional weapons. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic projectiles. They had never encountered anything like the dissolution array. How long until we reach communication range? 4 hours, Commander. Then we'll give them their chance to surrender, Vasquez said. After that, she did not finish the sentence. Both officers knew what came after. If the Zephyrians refused to surrender, the retribution would show them why humanity had become the most feared species in the galaxy. Park left, and Vasquez returned to looking out at the stars. Each point of light represented a sun, possibly with planets, possibly with life. How many of those worlds would fear humanity after today? How many alien species would look at human ships and remember what happened to Zephyria Prime? The retribution continued its silent advance through space. In its belly, the quantum dissolution array waited patiently for its first real test. The weapon had worked perfectly in simulations and on asteroid targets. Soon they would learn if it could do what the scientists promised: turn an entire planet into nothing but empty void. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at her window and watched the enemy system grow larger ahead of them. In a few hours, she would make first contact with the Zephyrians. She would offer them one chance to avoid destruction. After that, the universe would learn what happened when someone hurt humanity's children. The darkness of space held no sound, but soon it would hold no Zephyrian homeworld either.